Okay, we are here for the December 10th board meeting for Thurston County Fire Protection District 8. December 10 agenda. First on the list is public comments. Anything from the public there, Pam,
He's shaking his head no.
for attending, sir?
Sir, don't be calling me names.
Did you hear him?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go ahead then and move on to the chief's report.
Starting off with the November monthly report again, I apologize for the delay in sending it out, but thank you to our friends in the county for have a financial system that doesn't work. So we were unable to get, but I finally did yesterday. So hoping that you had a chance to review it, be glad to answer any questions.
So were we, short-staffed last month a lot, because I noticed 83 was not staffed, but.
Yeah, we had sick, lame and lazy. So we had folks that were off on sick leave or on light duty. And just
Different things.
it's a
Okay.
season and
Yeah,
it's
so
been
are
a
you,
stretch.
till we get people hired, are you gonna offer overtime then to?
We're still
that to-
offering overtime.
Huh?
We're about 45% over our budget in overtime already. So we pay plenty of overtime.
Okay, cool. I just wanted, since the let everything pass and everything.
No, we selectively, either Brandon or I approve all overtime. And we evaluate the coverage that we need, and we've had a couple events where potential bad weather, we gear up and we pay for overtime on that, and then other times we deny the overtime. It's really a management decision. So hopefully, at the point that we can bolster our staffing up with Prop 1, the need for overtime will go down.
Yeah,
Right now, we budget for about 7 or 8%, and right now we're doing about 12%.
and well, I guess that would be in the staffing report on when you're gonna start hiring more people.
I'm gonna talk about that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, it's a pertinent point. It's something that we should obviously talk about here, but also needs to be something that we talk with the public about. Because they may have some expectation. Oh, look, you got the thing passed. Well, why don't you have any more people today, January 1st?
Yeah, so
there's-
we need to clarify why we don't have them yet, so.
I would phrase it differently than that. I
Okay.
would say we need to clarify what our process is moving forward to acquire more
Yeah.
resources.
Which
More
is the
staff.
2025 budget policy recommendations. So
Okay.
we'll talk about that.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Uh,
Otherwise, I didn't have anything else on the monthly report.
I had one quick thing.
Yeah.
Monthly report appendix 2, volunteer staffing levels. There's a bunch of names on there. You must smile because that was the first thing that I saw. If we just get an updated list of that, by my count, there were 17 people on there that haven't been active on volunteers for a significant amount of time.
Well, I think maybe the wrong version
Which
of
could be
this
it.
got, because the date at the bottom of this is 10/2/17.
What? 10, yeah, 10/9, I have 10/9/17
Yeah.
roster.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
got the wrong one going in.
so I think it's just the wrong attachment,
Yeah,
but I
that's fine.
picked up the same thing. It was like,
Oh, you still do
hey,
volunteer?
yeah, I'm still active. Yeah, how about that?
Okay, sorry.
Yep, you're good.
The list is considerably smaller now. I will just
Yeah.
tell you that much.
That, yeah, we'll talk about that when we get that policy review as well. But like Doug and Glo was talking about just being strategic on how we hire our folks and basic value for laterals versus new hires and all that stuff.
That's
all
the
that
2025 business plan.
We're talking about, we're all excited.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments about the chief's report? We'll move forward then. Go ahead, sir.
The BLS contract, I sent you a copy of that. It's just a renewal of a contract we've had with Medic One for many years on how we receive reimbursement and so forth. The newest version will actually increase the reimbursement somewhat for helping to pay for our MSO or medical service officer, Jonathan, who's volunteer, but, you know, be some money there. And there's some other items that are in the agreement that were relatively new, so that will take effect next year, 2025. So that was just for your information. I didn't receive any questions or anything on it, so.
Okay.
Next one is the EMS comp plan. And as I mentioned in my email, this is a document that we've been working on for a couple of years now on updating the essentially not a strategic plan, but a vision, a comprehensive plan describing the desirables outcome for the EMS community in Thurston County, which includes Medic One and includes all the service providers like us. So it's meant to be a template for all of the allied service provider agencies, as well as fulfilling the need for the county to have a piece of their comp plan that the county government is updating at this point. So I've reviewed it very carefully. I've been on the committee for 2 years, and I think it's a good document. I think it will be the good platform for more detailed planning for what services and how the funding and so forth is for Medic One, which is a discussion that's not been held for several years. So anyway, that was actually for your information only. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or anything, I'd be glad to fill them in. The EMS Council is planning on adopting the revised version of that plan on the 17th. So if you could get back any comments to me by then, that would be great. A piece on the hiring, we have sent a letter. We plan to hire Zach Grimaldo, who was one of our volunteers. His starting date will be February 1st. We're planning on sending him to the county's Fire Recruit Academy, and so we're off and running on that. He is filling the vacancy that was created with the promotion of Ally Choate to lieutenant. So as of today, we don't have any vacancies in our current table of organization, so which is good. Next thing, we had you may have seen Travis's email on the Santa run that we had Friday. It was really fun. We had a good time. A lot of kids out there and everything, and it was enjoyable. We had a great chauffeur and Santa driving around in the old fire engine and keeping the lights going and trying to keep the headlights going.
Yeah.
But we did have a little mishap driving down Gull Harbor Road. You might be familiar with how narrow that is. Our brand new brush truck was driving in the parade. There was a parade of vehicles. We had about a half a dozen vehicles in the parade, including a van from the food bank who was collecting food. And sideswiped with a another large pickup truck with big mirrors. And essentially what it did was
Get the mirrors.
The two mirrors smacked.
yeah, the mirrors smacked. So we are looking at that. We're have getting some paperwork back, what the cost will be, whether we will file a claim or not. We are using some due diligence and to make sure that we are covered, and whether there will be any claim or tort claim on it from the driver of the other vehicle. So we're dealing with that. So, but other than that, nobody was hurt, and the damage was minor. Just to let you know, I don't have anything to hand out. I will at our next meeting in January. Is that Brent and his team have completed the required biennial inventory of all of our assets. He submitted a report to me. I haven't had a chance to review it yet, but there will be a list of recommended items to surplus And amongst those will be the rather large fleet of radio equipment that we no longer need, that's been replaced with the T-CERN project. And we're planning on surplusing one of our vehicles, utility vehicles. So we'll have that inventory report and the list of surplus items. The board will have to approve the surplusing and so forth, and then we'll dispose of it. We think that we've got a pretty good market for both items, radio equipment. Justin's been approached by somebody that wants a fire department in Mason County would like to buy it. And then I think the vehicle will be probably pretty sellable too. So
Side note on that too, Chief, are you talking portables and mobiles for the radios?
Yeah.
We could use those for the county academy as well, as we face it with the new UHF radios.
let Justin know.
Okay, I will.
And then, last thing I have on the monthly report is, today we had our state chiefs pre-ledge workshop on what kind of items that we think we'd probably be seeing. And amongst those were state budget, of course, they're looking at filling up a big hole in the revenue side of the budget. So the message is that there probably will not be any very many newly funded programs or projects and so forth. In fact, there will probably be considerable looking at cutback. And I know that Inslee's already restricted hiring and some projects and so forth. They figured this is going to be a shortfall, about a 4-year shortfall. So it's not a short-term thing. So that's kind of coloring the whole legislation this year. Will be probably pretty austere, but some of the highlights are they're trying to look at insurance issues, and the wildland urban interface continues to be a huge issue, especially in eastern Washington, where availability for fire insurance is pretty much limited because a number of companies have pulled out because of the fires over there. So that's a big issue. There are medical insurance issues for employees for probable cause types of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Risk.
Presumptive medical conditions that an employee might have. So they're working on that.
What do you mean presumptuous? Like if they had a existing condition
Right.
or something?
Right, so the career firefighters have what's known as presumptive coverage for certain medical conditions. Presumptive meaning it was presumed that the firefighter acquired that disease on the job.
Oh, okay.
So there's a list of those types of,
Okay.
If someone gets cancer, they don't have to.
Yeah, respiratory diseases and cancers and
yeah, similar to that.
PTSD and some things like that.
There's a movement afoot to look at even providing that to volunteers. I don't know how that's gonna work, but that's one of the things. Local government funding will be a big deal, especially as the state cuts back on stuff. And just basically a lot of tax related issues. So it will be interesting to see. I know that I think that the legislative workshop is scheduled for the second half of January. So that's generally the state chiefs and the state fire commissioners join together and host that. So.
So does the state then provide the medical insurance for each fire department type thing, or do we fall under the state, Washington State medical insurance or something?
Well, there's not, yeah, the insurance for us, for example, we have to prescribe to an insurance company
Yeah,
that covers our medical plan. Ours is the Washington Fire Commissioners trustee plan.
okay.
That's a private concern and we buy the insurance there. However, the left retirement also addresses long-term disabilities and job-related early retirements and so forth. So they work pretty much hand in hand. So that's the state piece.
Okay,
But the insurance coverage is not government insurance, it's privately purchased.
okay, so we get our own
Yeah.
our own insurance company.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's really all I have for the report. Chief, would you like to go over the staffing stuff?
Sure, I was out last month, so I'll give you a 2-month
Yeah, welcome back.
snapshot. Thanks. Thank you. So we had one volunteer resign, and I'll remind us that we had changed our volunteer program effective October 2nd. So this last group in October that we brought in was the last group of our former way we had always brought volunteers in. So we did bring 7 new volunteers in for October. And from here going forward, the application will be different, or it is different now. It's up already going down. More primarily, we're putting focus in on trying to get more, what we say, established volunteers, less volunteers that are trying to get hired career, more community based, and then get them to EMT, most likely EMT only, and for a longer time. And so that'll change that program up. So that will kind of set us up for, as we predicted, we talked about potential change in our numbers for staffing as we move forward. We're looking to kind of get to a 25 head count volunteer, so about where we're looking at being. So that would change some of the requirements. So from now on, well, the next few months might still be relevant, but we won't have the same, they were always shooting for 10 volunteers on each platoon. So we'll be getting away from that. So I'll still give the updates on who's coming and going, but it'll change some of that reporting on how we're tracking that from now on. But 70 volunteers came in and they'll be going in through hire EMT or EMT. And Chief mentioned we did hire one career, so he'll be starting on February 1st. As mentioned, we're going to the Career Academy and getting swapped over to a platoon at the end of the academy.
And how long is the academy for?
Till June, the end of June.
Wow.
Yep, so February 24th through June 20th or something, 21st, yeah. And then over to a platoon, and that rounds out our existing staffing.
I'm sorry, you said 25 volunteers is our goal, or we have 25 current
No,
volunteers?
we're still at, we have 10, so we're still at 30. Well, now we're higher, now we brought in 7, but they're at academy, so it doesn't really help for staffing because they're gonna be off in EMT and it won't help us for staffing yet. Our standard plan as we're moving forward is to assume that we will end up at 25.
Right. Yeah, 25 is the number that we've had continue through the 5-year plan.
If there's any other questions, that's the gist of it.
No, I think you stumbled on your speech in just a second, and the second time you said it, I think you said it correctly. These 7 volunteers that we've brought in as of October, they will be all going to the EMT class, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and you had said something about firefighter, but our focus and going forward is that work
Is
on
EMT.
EMT
Yep.
first and.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
our volunteers coming in will mostly be EMT, and then they'll stay for a longer period of time. We're no longer what we used to call back-to-back. Go to the fire academy, go straight to EMT, and then go get hired somewhere else. So now what we're doing is being more deliberate that we're not trying to be the stepping stone. For a long time that worked for us. We had large numbers of volunteers. We're stepping stone. We're a great way to get your foot in the door. We're a great way to go get hired somewhere. And that worked fine when there wasn't a big hiring flurry of departments trying to bring everyone in. So now we're looking more for people who already have a career, already have a family, maybe live local, not trying to go career. And the hope is to keep fewer volunteers for longer periods of time.
Currently, our standard for volunteers are all hazard approach. We want both to be firefighters and EMTs. Is that not true?
It has been.
It has been. Okay.
Yep.
So we're technically gonna start going away from that and have different responders, so just EMTs. If we put some thought into what that has an effect for the battalion chiefs when they're putting them on the rig and who's responding to what, who can go to what. So it seems like it might be a load on the battalion chiefs and on who can allocate resources. Well, he can't he doesn't have any bunker gear, so you can't do an MVA and just all those little layers that come.
Yep, they'd have to be more deliberate. They would know that they have, well, all of our career staff, of course, are fire EMT and fill the main seats with the career staff. And then hopefully that volunteer have one or two on duty would be the extra EMT. Whether it be an 8 unit or maybe the third or fourth person is EMT call, but obviously they would be ideal age qualified for fire. If they weren't, but we do have a
Can you
whole
hear
pool.
them?
We have a pool of,
Okay, I don't know if she can hear you guys, because you're.
Oh, I'm
talking-
hearing.
Okay,
so we do still have a pool of our current members that, not kicking any volunteers out or anything. But we do have a group that are fire and EMT still, just the new ones coming in. We're gonna primarily focus them on EMS.
Okay, would they essentially just be on the A buddy? Would that be their primary response?
Well, I can't say it'd be up to the battalion chief as they make the schedule.
Okay.
They may, if the 8 unit's up and running, that might be a great place for them, but they very well could end up being the third or fourth EMT on the engine. Could be. Okay. Okay.
All right, thanks. We're ready to move on. Okay, we'll go to the 2025 budget policy recommendations.
Thank you. I again sent it out, had a little few comments, and I've made the changes and so forth, but essentially, as in the past, it's described where at least I think we need to go in the next year, and it included the two major goals and objectives, which should, as we walk through that process, answer your question.
Yeah.
So the first one, if you look at page 2, under section 3, goal number 1 talks about a comprehensive review of our incident readiness and response policies, procedures, and guidelines. And there has been an awful lot of change in the last couple of years. Our staffing is balanced differently than it used to be. There are different county-wide programs for interoperability and standardization, and they all need to be addressed. And what this does is set up a process by which our operating folks will sit down and evaluate, prioritize, and provide recommendations back on any changes of current procedures and policies, any new ones, or if there are any that are redundant or not needed any longer. So it will take a bit of a time to wade through, but we've been talking about wanting to do this for about 3 or 4 years. It's time we need to do it. So we've established as a goal and set of objectives, and by God, we'll get it done this year, one way or the other. So I think a lot of that work's been done. We've had a lot of ideas and so forth, but it's just we've not had an organized methodology to establish it, review it, and approve it, and begin implementing it. So
I like,
Go ahead.
I like that idea. It's
Okay.
one way to make sure it happens, right?
Well, which is, and I wanted to just ask for clarification on the implementation of this, or the moving forward on this goal. Chief LeMay is responsible for sort of driving the bus on that, and I assume then you will delegate down and work with the battalions and then the other staff on down to bring all of the information back up and unify it into the policy updates and those kinds of things.
We'll be planning out our 2025 officer and battalion chief meetings to correlate with topics. So we'll have a focus. January, we'll have this topic, February, this topic.
Okay,
Kind of stagger them out, but yes, get all the input from the officers as well.
right. And then basically bring that all together by about the middle of the year, June, and submit to chief. Is that right?
that's what the goal says, yes.
is
Okay,
this on hiring new staff, what you're talking about?
No, this
This
is,
is the
these
procedure.
are just policies and procedures for our operations.
Okay,
That's goal, you're talking about goal 2. We're
okay,
not there yet.
okay,
So actually, it will be using, to kind of answer your question too, we're using our current meetings that we have. We have battalion level meetings on a monthly basis, and we have all officer meetings like we've had for a number of years. So we'll use that tiered approach to try to develop some of these things, and then, it will matriculate up through a senior management and then ultimately into a draft, so.
Okay.
Any questions on goal 1? Okay, goal 2 is about, oh my God, we've got permission to go out and hire people, career staff. So we have, because of change is constant with this organization, and it's been in big change at least in the last 25 years of me being here. And so what I want to do before we engage in all of this hiring for new career staff, as well as bringing on future volunteers, have a well thought out, logical, deliberate process that we follow that that will check all the boxes for things that we think are important that need to happen in the process. And this starts right at the recruitment level, including advertising for members, how candidates are evaluating candidates and how we select them, how we onboard them, both culturally, human HR, human relations related, and then any technical training that needs to be done. The assumption is that both career and volunteer applicants and candidates will probably have little, if any, firefighting and EMS background, because most of those folks that lateral in with some expertise like that aren't going in as a volunteer, and most likely they're going to larger fire departments. So I think what we'll need to do is look at, Joy or John coming off the street with a desire to be in the industry, but having no real training or background in it. This is something that is pretty much countywide, pretty much statewide, pretty much nationwide now. It's just that the numbers of qualified candidates is much lower than it used to be. I mean, frankly, applicants for career positions, you get several, if not tens or hundreds of applicants for each FTE, vacancy. It's not true anymore. So even Seattle has not had to go out and to provide incentives for future candidates to even apply and then test like that. So, I mean, where's that?
So are you gonna do a nationwide search, or are you gonna do just a statewide search?
Well, this goal 2 helps us define what it is we're gonna do. So the goal 2 is setting up how we do all of that and hopefully getting it done in time to really do the bulk of implementing the volunteer program that Chief LeMay explained, and lead to the process necessary for us to increase our staffing.
So how long are you estimating this process to take? Like 6 months, a year?
A year.
Really?
Yeah.
To me that, I'm sorry, but that's just not acceptable. I feel that the process needs to be sped up a lot sooner. The citizens of this county voted on this. It needs to be moved faster.
Well, I would tell you that that's fine, but to get people that we're going to have that are willing and able to do the job, whether it's volunteer or career, it's going to take time, and we need to have a system to vet them. We've had several events in the last 3 years that issues emerged because that process was not followed. There was not a thorough vetting, and I'm very interested in making sure that we have a thorough enough vetting that we don't have issues like that. It's a potentially a risk to the community, and it certainly could be a risk to the individual. So
are you gonna also offer laterals if people, are you gonna
Probably.
open that also?
Yeah,
To me, at this point, and then how, need to open that, but also how many are you planning on hiring within that year's time? Are you gonna hire one and then we're gonna wait another year and then hire another one? Or are you gonna hire
That's-
2, 3, 4 at a
that's-
time?
that's part of what we're going to address in goal
Okay.
2. What is the capacity we have bringing new members on? I don't know yet. That's part of what goal 2 will say. We have at least 3 promotional issues that we need to talk about because we've added 3 lieutenant positions. So it will most likely be out of current people that we have. So, and then that will leave the 6 new firefighters plus the 3 fire lieutenant filling lieutenant's vacancies. So there will be 9 to 10 hirings of new career firefighters.
So
And-
are you looking at doing a 4 platoon?
No.
Just stay at a 3 platoon, so we don't need any more BCs or lieutenants, so we're just.
No, we do need lieutenants. We plan to have, or ultimately, we plan to have,
Yeah, I mean, this is a plan that we've seen in the past about how dollars might get spent to hire people.
Mhm.
And it has, those, they were forecasts and they may change a little bit. But it's not like there's not been any thinking on this. This has been the plan that's been shared and we've talked about before.
it's just a plan we use to sell Prop 1.
Correct, in terms of ramping it up, that.
I'll support the chief on this one too. This is, we have a real opportunity here to create a foundation for this district for the next several decades. And if we take our time and do that hiring process right, then we can retain, we can onboard, we can do everything we need that these people will stay here.
Okay.
I agree with you 110%, and we should look on how we're hiring these people. And I'll just use Lacey because that's the only perspective I had, is we have 561 candidates for 8 spots this year because we got rid of all those prerequisites. We had all EMT and all fire and stuff, which allowed us a lot of time to pick those individuals that have an eclectic background, they have a great personality, they do a lot for the community. Just being strategic in how we onboard these people, because we want to retain and keep these people.
Right.
This is
I mean, the reason I'm asking these questions is because these are questions the citizens are gonna ask.
Yep.
And so we just need to
I
be
agree.
very clear on exactly the process. So I'm sort of, voicing things because I'm not familiar totally with all the hiring and all that, and I don't understand why it takes so long to do the process. The citizens are gonna think the same thing. They wanna know, why is it taking that long? So that's why I'm asking these questions, so you guys can explain that to us, so that this way it's recorded and.
Well, we,
No.
in our briefings that we did, our public outreach, our frequently asked questions, we said it's gonna take a time to spin these people up. It isn't gonna happen overnight. But we had to start some point, and the first point is getting enough revenue stream in to help pay for these people. You can't do it before. I mean,
Right,
And I agree, your questions are very good,
Yeah.
and they become part of our communication strategy
right,
out to the citizens of the
Right.
district.
so as this all unfolds on how we're going to do all of this, yes, well, obviously, we're gonna share with everybody. It behooves us to move along smartly, and the dates that are here could happen before too. So, but I just tried to have a realistic approach to how long it's gonna take to do these things. So, I don't know if we're gonna end up bringing any new people on, after Zach goes through his schooling. I hope to. And that's part of the budgeting process. I need to understand and know how many people we need to pay for volunteer career. And so we're all working on that, but at least I think we're moving in the right step and making sure that we're doing it the right way, because this is a great opportunity. To stop, take a breath, and then put a logical plan together.
one piece I do want to at least have a discussion about adding to that goal too, and this is great. The recruitment, the selection, the onboard, initial training, deployment of both volunteer and career responders into the district. I think we do need to add something in there about retention. I think we need, if we're going to slow roll and talk about the best people that we hire, I think we need to add how we keep the people that we've hired.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, I think that's a big piece of what's the carrot at the end of the stick to keep our battalion chiefs, our lieutenants that might be looking at other places, just how can we get them goal oriented and have them achieve their goals?
Well, see, that one leads into the other, so we need to understand what the motivation for a person coming on board in the first place is. Will help you understand how to motivate to retain them as well. So I think it all feeds hand in glove. It's cradle to grave, if you will, system that we need to look at. That's why it takes a while to put all of this together. And the motivation, the incentives, all of that changes all the time too. So you constantly need to modify that because people change.
Well, just question, what I think I heard you say has more to do with our existing staff and leadership than it does necessarily the new folks that we'll bring on.
I think it's a little bit of both, yeah.
both.
You're right, yeah, it's both.
Right, because we need to, have our existing staff, our existing leadership feel like they're supported, like they have, there's a benefit to the hard work that they're gonna do to bring on and train and incorporate new folks into the organization.
Yep, I agree 100%. This opportunity, getting our citizens to allow us this $2.03 every SS1000 will open up a lot of doors for us if we're strategic on how we approach it. I mean, we have a lot of opportunities for our members to retain the ones we have, a lot of outside education programs, I mean, sword stuff, I mean, a lot of things that we could keep our people engaged and interested in that will help, in turn, the next guy coming in. And I think we should discuss.
Yeah, I think one of the, just from my experience, has been one of the things, and I've talked at length about it with our folks, is not just the technical side of being a good firefighter EMT, it's being, especially for officers, being a good leader, good mentor, good listener, a bit of a disciplinarian. And that kind of training is less fun, it's less objective, but it's probably more important than the technical skills that are fairly easy to train. So yes, a big piece of that will be looking at how, what I'll call the kitchen table politics goes, because that's where all the problems start, around the kitchen table between calls. And how we manage that internally, and that's a big piece of what I think we need to do.
Officer development, DFOs, and there's all sorts of avenues.
Yep.
Well, that'll save money too, and that makes the community happy. If you have retention, you're not paying to retrain, and
Yeah.
that's big money.
Yeah. So that's goal 2, and both of those create quite a bit of work. And I'm confident that we'll get them both done. We'll get us onto a place where we can start getting some people on the floor.
I
And
mean, it means that it takes 6 months from the time that, like, this guy's that got, Zach, that you're just hired, he's gonna start in February, but then he's going to training and he's gonna be gone. So it's like, if we don't even look to hire somebody until the end of next year, then it's still gonna be a year and a half out before we get anybody on. So that's what I'm saying. To me, that process, somehow we need to figure out a way to achieve our goals, but to try and speed it up a little bit.
well, it's not a problem any different than any other department in this county is facing right now. It's just the way we've chosen to, or hopefully have chosen to deal with it. I mean, shit, it takes us 3.5 years to get a goddamn pumper, so talk to me about quick spin up or 55 months out here now.
58 minutes plus.
So,
How do you plan for when you need to place the
Buy one,
order?
and you buy the next one. Just like that. One shows up, you buy the next one, and you'll see it in 5 years. It's ridiculous.
which is another thing we need to talk about too, but, so actually the rest of this is fairly common. It's a recount of the stuff that we've done in 24, plans that we continue to do. I don't have a detailed CNR&R plan yet. I will have that by next month and get it out as soon as we can, but we'll have it up for discussion and so forth at our next meeting. So, but I'm looking at not very many changes to that. Talking about that, so as soon as I have the draft that's sent to me, then I'll pass it on.
Okay,
So I guess hopefully you've had a chance to read through all of this. I did want to spend some time talking about the goals and objectives. But I would be glad to answer any other questions you may have about the draft, and I would be asking for your approval.
so I had a thought, since we are, asking for approval and the signing of resolutions to move dollars and that, if we could, for the purpose of our recorded meeting, have a quick discussion or, hit the highlights on going through on how we came up with those values and that kind of thing. And again, my thought is that we have a recorded discussion of it that anybody could take a look at and kind of get some insight. So if you could go to section B on the revenue and, you know, walk through that, it's all written down here, but,
Okay, yeah, so, what I'm suggesting, and based on the approval of Prop one, I calculated that, our, property tax levy will be about 7.24 million, which is obviously a significant increase from the past. I am not proposing that we change the vision or the primary district goal, bearing in mind that we have set target levels of service that we strive to achieve both for fire and EMS. And then our general tactical approach to that is by doing it from 2 staff fire stations. This is something we created in 2015. We've continued to go down that same path of what our vision and plan is. Ultimately, the idea is to establish a better location for our east side fire station. That would be on the property on 63rd that we purchased, eventually changing the use of this or selling it or whatever, having a east and west fire station from which consistently staffed companies could respond. So that's the plan. The plan for creating the new fire station will not even be considered until such time that we determine that the 2 company staffing is consistent and as permanent as we can get it. So that's going to take a couple of years or 3 years anyway.
well, yeah, I would think it'd take the majority of the existing excess levy time.
So that's our roadmap. We continue to expand and thank Heidi and her team for community connections. I think we have a very, very good, appropriately scoped citizens advisory team that works on providing information to the community. I've gotten good feedback from our stakeholders, if you will, about it. I think they did a nice job in helping spread information regarding Prop 1 and what the cost would be and what the resulting benefits would be. I think that, and I list under community risk, I think that there are countywide efforts in determining what our community risk is. And frankly, it's not a lot different from Lacey or Little Rock. I mean, generally Thurston County has a fairly homogeneous community risk. And there's quite a bit of effort going on in that. We have maybe some localized risk, but I think that the effort that the county's doing should paint fairly good picture of what we need to be thinking about. Obviously, the big one, obviously, is wildland urban interface. And so we've already addressed training, we've already addressed equipment and so forth. So we know that it's a problem and we'll continue to embed that in our portfolio of services that we have. I'm suggesting again that with our new tax levy, that we have, deposited in our operating fund from which we will make and continue to make our annual allocation to our capital repairs and replacements fund, as well as our reserve fund. As you remember, the reserve fund by our policy is to maintain approximately 33% of our operating budget in the reserve fund, which we do. This is the first large year, 2024 is the first large year that we will make that contribution. And it will just become a regular part of the budget, like our contribution to capital repairs and replacements. Talks about staffing, and I think we've talked about most of that, but as the role and the role of career and volunteer is changing, I think that we're being allowed to have more flexibility in what we want to see in a volunteer, because we're continuing to build the base of on-duty staffing with career staff. It then obviously has a budget impact, but it's also given us the flexibility to look at an alternate volunteer program that doesn't necessarily harm our ability to provide service. So again, the whole purpose of the 5-year plan is to increase sufficient staffing of career staff at 2 locations and then buttress that with volunteer staffing. That's what we're doing.
So you decided on a minimum of at least two members staffing.
Pardon?
So you're doing a two qualified responders for minimum staffing at each station.
Yeah, you can't have any less than 2.
Yeah, I know.
But I think the more people you have on a vehicle, if in a like fire, if you've got 4 people on the first arriving crew, you can do a lot more than you can with 2 people. So hopefully, with our plan for ramping up to 28 FTEs, I think the likelihood of a 3-person company is far more likely. Then we'll have times where we'll have 4. That's about where it's gonna go.
Are we gonna quantify that by saying we have minimum staffing standards or something?
No.
We're not. Okay,
I am not.
okay. Can you explain that to me and why?
Yes, because I'm not going to have minimum staffing.
Speak freely, chief. Speak freely.
That's just, I think that we will continue to have, I think that we need to be careful because that may set a precedent to the public, may set a precedent concerning safety and a whole bunch of other things. So we will have as safe a staffing as we can. We want to make sure everybody that's on duty, on shift is qualified. So that goes back to what we're trying to do, and vetting new people and training our current people. So, so we will do the best we can. And we'll do it better because we have more career and volunteers.
Start.
We still are working on Station 81. We did have our major disaster, flooding of Heidi's office, and finally we recovered from it. Heidi finally got all of our furniture necessary. Probably the biggest project that I want to focus on that's been dragging our feet for several years now is the fire protection system over at Station 83. My feeling is that's going to continue to be a permanent location for a West Side Fire Station. I know that if we were to precisely locate a station on the west side, it would be somewhat north, probably towards Zangle Road. But I don't think we would ever get funding support for moving a fire station 1.5 miles.
Yeah.
So resigning ourselves to the fact that there are portions of Fish Track Loop that aren't within a 5-mile limit, I think that will be a permanent location for our West Side Fire Station. So I think it's worth investing some money in. The biggest risk that I see there now is the fire protection system. And that's the work that we need to do.
What
And
does the fire protection system do? I mean, what is, because I don't understand what that
okay,
is.
well, it includes having fire sprinklers throughout the building.
It's protection for the fire station.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it's, right, it's sprinklers and
Okay.
all that kind of stuff and alarms and generators and et cetera. Yeah,
and it does not have that right now, or
It's not,
it's not up to date?
Correct.
It's not working properly, okay.
there's a whole list of issues that need to be dealt with.
Okay.
That's why we've been working with a consulting engineer on it, put a scope of work together. He will be providing a report at the January meeting, wasn't able to do it tonight, of what the scope of the work will be, an estimate of the cost and everything. He's confident that we could put together a package and hopefully have the work on the street and available for a construction window this summer. I'm a little more skeptical, but I'm hoping we can get this project done. It's been a long time waiting.
Where was I? Sorry, in the projects piece and under number 13, number 3 under there, we talked about replacing that station altogether. Is this something that that we can squeeze out a couple of years if it's still functional? Then if we talk about it, we're not.
no, that,
We appreciate it.
number 3 is what he talked about in terms of replacing this station. This is the land already acquired on 63rd Avenue. That's where the resident.
Resident houses.
House is now.
Okay, so that would be
Yeah.
the upgrade, not the west side.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the long,
Yeah.
you know, 2019, we put together, our phase 2 master planning and said, when we get enough people and consistently staffed, we'll plan on building a new fire station. These are the last 3 steps or objectives in that 2019 plan that are left. So we're working on getting the staffing up, so it's consistent at both locations. We stabilize all of that, and then we'll start looking at building the new fire station.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, the sentencing here is kind of a little bit run on, and so I can see how it could be misread when you have something about the North Olympia Station at the very end of the sentence there. But really, yeah, really the focus of that is when there's enough staffing and when there is a decision to fund it and it's supported by the public, then we will move forward on something to do with the new station on 63rd.
And that could take 3 to 5 years or more.
Exactly. And then there is also the need to upgrade the North Olympia Station, which is sort of a separate sentence, maybe. Take the word "and" out of there and.
Well, and going back to North Olympia Fire Station, more needs to be done other than fire protection. So there needs to be some architectural improvements. There needs to be heating, ventilation, air conditioning, electrical. So, but the most emergent need really is the fire protection. And so the next programming will probably be looking at in 1 or 2 years, looking at making architectural modifications in that building to accommodate single dorm housing, different, ADA approved public areas, things like resiliency for earthquake and so forth. So, but that, I want to get the fire piece done first.
Sure.
Training and education, we've talked about this somewhat, but, as we're striving to make sure that we've got, that we're meeting the burden that we're creating by bringing in new members who have no experience, plus the fact that technology changes and trying to teach an old dog new tricks in our training program for things that are going on, and working and leveraging a lot of our training with county-wide efforts. We have, and Jake's in charge of the county's career firefighter recruitment training program. We have a similar one that we've had for many years for volunteers. So we've got great programs to do all that. It takes time, it takes money, but it's a good program. And I think people are finally realizing, rather than each department doing their own, that we all work together and create economies of scale, because we're all facing the same problem of bringing more volunteers, more career staff. The medic EMS training is a little different. We will continue to have OTEP training is provided through Medic One. Part of the comprehensive plan that I talked about earlier is taking a look at that. What that could mean in the future could be a little different. What we have chosen, what I pushed for several years, was in the years past for OTEP training or ongoing skills training for EMTs. Somebody from Medic One would come in here and provide the training. Well, for a whole bunch of reasons, that didn't work very well. And so what we've now have created a program where each department has internal trainers that are supported by Medic One for OTEP training. And so that's what we're doing. We have several, well, as you know, we have our 3 assigned lieutenants that are assigned to EMS training for our crew and everything. And from my observation, it's been far more effective in providing training at that level. So I think that's going to work. And I see other changes coming down the road with how OTEP training is going to potentially be changes in legislation on what EMTs are, entitled to do or what they need to be trained on. And so, I mean, it's less of a problem for us than the fire training, but again, they're both present their own challenges. And then talking about the element of training, where it's non-technical training, where it's training to have, you know, keep people desirable behaviors and, you know, try to warn them against bad behavior. Which mom and dad should have done years ago, but they didn't, so. Health and wellness, I think that we will continue to have a more aggressive, progressive program, preventative. I know, Chief Hall has put together, we're working with the LNI on their fire program. We have leveraged that to buy equipment, receive training and everything. We have been implementing a lot of these training elements through our training program, but based on information that we're getting from LNI. I think one of the things that I want to see us move more and more into is wellness training related to physical capability, nutrition, and mental health. I think we have to be thinking about things like that. We have programs that have been established, peer programs that have worked with our responders. At this point, it's been more or less responsive to need, but I see it blossoming out more to preventative and healthy lifestyle training, and which obviously will benefit the individual through all of this and their family. Contracts and agreements, we will continue to maintain appropriate contracts. We have one, for example, is the maintenance of our fleet. It's being done by Olympia Fire, who's doing it essentially for everyone else in the county. It's been a good program. Facilities, equipment, and CNR&R. Again, I don't see significant change in the approach that we've used. We are instituting software now that has capability of providing us much better information back on the operations and maintenance of our assets in the buildings, in the equipment and that. So I'm hoping at some point we'll be able to use some of that data to help us do some predictable maintenance schemes and that, and certainly help us provide some funding, you know, budgeting for repairs and replacements. Right now, it's just sort of a crapshoot. We do have a brand new radio system. The new digital system was turned up on the 19th of November. By all accounts, it seems to be working. If you're on the right channel, but there's a lot of knobs, buttons, squeaks, and bells on the darn thing, and I think, but our people are learning how to use it pretty well, and I've not heard of any major problems. So, by the way, I went out to Station 82 this afternoon. It looks like Groundhog Day out there. They've got trenches and they're digging up the whole yard. They're putting in underground cabling and everything in. The big mast is up. They poured the pads for the generator set and the propane tank, and improvements inside the building are about 50% done. So they're hoping.
What kind of improvements did they do inside?
Well, they took one of the bays and they're using it for a radio room. So they've got all their equipment in a filtered, tempered environment for heating environment and so forth. So that's about half done. So, but they had about 6 guys out there this morning or this afternoon, and they were getting that done. They predict that it'll probably be able to button it up in March. So depending on the weather. But what that does do though, is that site out there, and it's active, the radio system's working, and they've got it temporarily wired in, seems to be providing good or better coverage than we had in the past in that part of the Johnson Point area. So.
And that's just for the medical response equipment, right? It's not it's not a cell tower for people's cell phones.
It's just for the TCERN project. However, when we did the agreement with TCOM for the use of that site, we did provide for if Verizon or somebody wanted to hang a cell site on there, we could, but we would split the revenue for doing that. So, okay. But both TCOM and the district would have to agree to do that. In fact, that was when we were out talking with the neighbors all about that. They were all okay with fire radio, but can we put a cell site on this? And I said, well, not gonna go down that trail right away.
Yeah, yeah.
Stations and fleet, again, I mentioned that we're still pushing to update and reduce the size of our fleet. And I think we're being successful in doing that. Hopefully mid next year, we'll see our brand new pumper show up. Then there will be a matriculation of pumpers down and, I think that's about the only one, you know, Jake, you mentioned about getting in line for an event in advance of when you would normally have planned to purchase a long lead item like that. That is one of the conversations.
You get a discount the sooner you buy them, because every year they go up, 5 to 10% based on just inflation and all the good stuff. So the more money you put down the vehicles now, the same in the long run. But you gotta strategically plan that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, our previous assumptions were assuming, you know, a year and a half. And
Yep.
so,
And in terms of the one that we put on order 2 years ago, I think Mr. McBride said he thinks that they might have it done by the end of 2025.
well, that's what the manufacturer's telling you.
Yeah, right. So that means we'll get it about middle or late 2026.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So that's all I have on that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, I would ask if you would like to approve this document.
Before we go down that road, I think to put our minds at ease on what it looks like to onboard our new people, I don't want to speak out of turn here for the rest of the board, but is it possible to get a strategic plan from you and your team here in the next month or so on what that looks like for the next year for hiring and onboard new people and then the year after that?
As best as we know at this point, yes.
Okay.
That's part of the budget process, like I mentioned earlier, is I need to know, do I need a budget for 12 months, 6 months, 3 months for an individual for our labor budget? So yes, it'll be very high level at this point, but now that Chief LeMay's back and we begin looking at that, but I really wanted to start off having the goal and objective in place to really make sure that we're consistent with where we go with all of this.
We have a meeting on Thursday to start detailing out what specifically the implementation might look like.
Just, this might be a little off topic too, but we were talking about doing a larger group for lateral groups in the fall. As well, we have a need, Olympia has a need as well. So if there's a need for lateral groups in the fall, then we're gonna open up to the outside agencies as well. It's a 6-week program that is, a fraction of what the onboarding is for an entry level academy. So that option is available to you as well.
Yeah, I heard that. So, yeah, that will affect a lot of what we're talking about. And very honestly, the character and the skills and so forth, but the new candidates too, it's gonna depend a lot on that. If we can find some laterals, of course, it will shorten the
Yeah.
timeframe.
Sure.
But if we have to draft them off the street, it's just gonna take longer.
I get it. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 budget policy recommendations.
I second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you.
And I will have, if better numbers for you, I will have updated 5-year plan and initial numbers, probably not at detail level, before the next meeting. So
Great, thanks, Jim.
Okay. We have 3 resolutions for transfers of funds.
These resolutions were recommended in last year's budget policy that the board already adopted. So these are in some form already been semi-approved by you guys,
Okay.
but the official document itself we're making that transfer. So I'll send them to the county and they'll actually make the fund transfers. The first one is moving money from our capital projects fund. So just as a reminder, you probably already know this, we've got our regular operating fund. We have our CR&R, which is what we use for repairs and replacement of apparatus and such. We have our capital projects fund, that we haven't had for that many years, but, we use that for larger projects. That would be where this money is coming from, $500,000, and we're moving it into our operating budget.
Just to remind you, that fourth fund was generally set aside for fire station construction. It was a carryover from pre-merger when the District 8 was setting aside money for a new Johnson Point Fire Station. Merger intervened, and District 7 folks came in with a pot of money they had set aside to do some capital improvements. So we created that fourth fund at that time. Since then, we've diverged in how we're doing things, and we've chosen to supplement our operating budget with funds from that were originally going to be capital.
So the first resolution 2407 is moving 500,000 from the capital projects fund into our general operating fund. Do you want to approve these separately or all in one? I guess it doesn't, what do you?
I think we just do them all one.
All at once, okay.
I'll
So
continue to
just, yeah,
explain them.
go ahead and explain.
So
yeah,
the next
the next.
one is 2408, and this is moving money from 366,800, so kind of a weird number, from the general operating fund into the CR&R. And every year the chief does he looks at what we anticipate purchasing and makes a recommendation of what that amount should be. So every year we've been moving money from the operating into the CR&R. So that's what that is. And then the next one, the last one, is resolution 2409, and that is moving money from the general fund into our reserve account. And that we used to call the rainy day fund. And that's 104,061. I don't know why it's a weird number. I'm sure it was a percentage. That's how he rolls. 104,061. 104,000.
So we maintain that roughly 33% of our operating budget in a reserve account. Right.
Because we have in our policy that we have 4 months of budget in the reserve account at all times. So that's what that's about.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2407, 2408, and 2409 as they are written.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions?
Nope.
Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
I,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I've got 2 sets of minutes. One is for our regular meeting, which took place on November 12th, and then our special meeting where we were discussing budget on November 19th.
Yeah, the November 19th was
Budget hearing,
yeah, budget hearing that had to do with whether or not the proposition passed.
yes,
Right.
correct.
Yes.
I'll move that we approve the November meeting, both the November meeting minutes as written.
Thank you.
I second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
I,
Thank you.
So the warrants went out and nobody has contacted me, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer that.
No, no questions.
I didn't have any.
I had none.
Okay,
All right. Looking for a motion to approve then?
I make a motion that we approve the warrants as they are for 11/6 to 12/31/24.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
I,
thank you. And then I gave you a handout with proposed meeting dates for next year, and they continue to be the second Tuesday of the month. There didn't seem to be any holiday conflicts or anything of that nature. So I just wanted to get a blessing on that. We don't need a motion necessarily.
Okay.
And then I was just bringing to your attention also, I try to let you know every year, we do have the renewal for the Washington Fire Commissioners Association medical insurance. We have to renew it every year. And it requires just the board chair's signature, but I just wanted to let you know that is here. And moving on to announcements, we got notice that the legislative day is going to be January 23rd. It's only for a couple hours, I guess. Yeah, 8 to 10 on the 23rd. And I wasn't really clear on if it's in person or if it's online. It didn't give a lot of great information, but there was a flyer on that, so. Bringing that to your attention. Also, I want you to start thinking about the board positions for next year, which we'll probably want to do at the first meeting in January.
In January,
The positions of, commissioner.
chair, and vice chair.
and Vice chair. And
The volunteer. That wasn't, what was that other
we
one?
do need somebody for the Board of Volunteer Firefighters Association to be a representative. And in the past, it's been the same people that are, whatever the
Yeah.
role is here would be on that as
Well,
well.
and that's also gonna be determined if they are going to continue it. Cause there was discussion at the last meeting whether they were going to continue the Board of Volunteer.
Really? I hadn't heard that.
Well,
Wow.
Jake's stepping down as the
Oh,
president.
you're talking about the association.
Association.
That's different.
Oh, that's
totally
different.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, oh, yeah, don't get rid of the Board of Volunteer Firefighters and my pension.
That's not good.
Erase that.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
the
anyway, just start thinking about
South
that.
Bay Firefighters Association is what you're talking about.
Okay, and the
Yeah.
other one is the one that we were doing the board
The
for.
Board
was-
for Volunteer Firefighters is
Right.
a state organization, and we are the local, board for
I guess
that.
I always
We
thought
just
that you were
approve
combined.
things within our
It's the
own.
local board that approves any claims and approves enrollments and so forth. It's each agency has their own local board that feeds up to the state board.
Okay, okay,
Yep.
yeah,
And so we need a fire chief, a
Yeah.
commissioner, a member, a volunteer,
right.
whatever.
And I didn't include it on the agenda, but I was gonna do an update on the audit. We did have a little audit, what do they call it? The entrance meeting this week. And Commissioners Hunter and Bivens attended that, and basically, they just tell you about what they are, why they're doing what they're doing, and what they're gonna specifically be looking at. And they've already started it. It's kind of odd because the chief and I had a pre-meeting way back when. And they've already done one of the audits. They haven't given us results, but they do the financial audit on our financial statements. And then the second one is more generic, and they didn't know what they were gonna do it on. So that's why they asked me for all these documents, and they go through it, and then they decide what they're gonna do. And so they're checking overtime, payroll, our financial wellness, and I'll explain what that means. And, and some accounts payable things. But I've already submitted almost everything to them, so unless something comes up, I expect that they'll probably be done in the next week, pretty quickly. But the financial wellness, they have a online portal program called the FIT. I don't know what it stands for, but they plug in all our numbers and then they look at it and they look at the percentages. And they said that in 2023, our operating fund was kind of low, which we knew that, but they weren't looking at all of our funds. They were only looking at that fund. So, that's why they wanted to look at our financial wellness. And, in doing so, I did share with them our policy about the reserve fund and that we have to maintain, at 4 months of, expenses in that fund. And if you look at all the funds, we're doing fine. And he's like, oh, yeah, that looks good to me. But it's just a matter of clarifying those things to them because they're not.
Are we one of the only departments that break those are,
I don't know what
Funds
other
down?
departments do. I wish I could tell you that. I have no idea.
I mean, to me, it smart because then you always have money for something if you need it.
I know that generally that in Washington State, we have to follow the bar's accounting codes, and they're very, very specific, and they change frequently. But we do have, and we also work with the county, so we're working with globally the state and their county system, and then we've got our local Thurston County that have their own little system going. And I know that most organizations have a general fund, and most of them have a second fund, capital fund of some sort. I don't know about a reserve fund, if that's a common thing.
It's up to each agency to decide how they do it.
Yeah.
Some of them, I imagine Lacey has multiple, so it just varies.
But capital is typical because there are certain accounting codes that you have to use for that are different from the operating. So I don't know what other departments do.
When was the last time we were audited by Washington State Ratings Bureau? How long has that been? Years.
Well, the state does it for us every 3 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're talking WSRB.
Yeah,
This is a different,
Yeah, I get that.
yeah,
Yeah.
5 years. We're up next year.
We're up next year.
But what I learned when listening to them is that some agencies, larger agencies, are audited annually. And I'd be like, oh, I'm grateful that we only have to do it every 3 years.
Yeah.
So, but so far it's going fine, and I don't expect to have any problems at the end. I'm sure they're finding things that could be improved, because that's just the way it goes, there's always something that we could do better.
Well, just the very nature of how complex our budgeting system is now compared to the way it was when I was district secretary. I mean, you could work out of a C-first checkbook, and manage the whole department. Can't do that anymore, so. There's more to look at, there are more potential risks and everything, and we've always looked at, even when I worked at the state, I looked at state auditors coming in and as a useful thing. I mean, they're looking for stuff, and the way I looked at it was if they find something, we need to know if we're not doing something correctly or a better way to do it. So we've always been pretty receptive about it. We've never had any serious response at
No, we
all
haven't.
the whole time that I've been here, so.
But the financial reports have gotten more challenging every single year. We didn't, when I first started, the gal that was here before never did one. And I don't know if they were enforced back then, they might not.
They weren't
have been.
required.
I didn't think so. And so it was one of those things that once I started doing it, it just got more challenging. And there's components of it that we do that aren't necessarily required, but if you want to go out for a bond, you need to have that. It sets a good foundation for credit. So the more years that you have a good financial report,
Yeah.
the more opportunity.
That was primary reason we started doing the regular reporting was
Yeah.
to support bond rating. And that was a good thing to do.
Right, but it's super challenging, and it's been really challenging for me because I didn't come to this job with that background. So it's been a learning curve.
Learn as you go.
But Bias, that's part of why we took on Bias software when we did, because they're super helpful with that. They're set up for success, and they're very knowledgeable, and they have a lot of trainings, and so they keep up on all the new stuff, and they help to let us know that, so, yeah.
Okay. I just want to make back to the Board of Volunteer, the local board for BVFF. As I recall, we will have a chair of that committee. And the chair of the board is also required, suggested, should be a member of that group, but doesn't have to be the chair of that thing as well. I think Mr. Gleckler thought that was a requirement and put himself in there, and that was fine, but I don't think, as I understand it. Anyway, so we probably would like to have 2 folks from the commission be on that. And then again, as I think Chief said, it's the fire chief, the secretary, and then we're looking for a volunteer. Nicholas Van Kirk has been our person associated with that in the past, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't have those meetings every month. We only have them when we have business to deal with, so.
Yeah, I think, right, we've had four
Yeah.
or five maybe this year for the whole
Yeah,
year.
there's not a lot of business pertaining to that. If
Right.
we have an accident and we need to approve that, or if somebody is, collecting their retirement, there's
We have
documentation to be paid.
Prove that so that
Yeah.
they begin to get their retirement benefit,
Yeah.
Right.
Things like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, any other questions for me?
Oh, man.
Okay,
Hey, any comments for the good of the order from the commissioners?
Just want to say congratulations on us passing the levy and welcome back, Brandon. Your leads.
So I'll second that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing.
Okay. All right, do we have any review and follow-up?
Yeah, basically the preparing all the documents necessarily for the operating expense budget for next month. And like I say, I'll get those documents out to you, draft documents out well in advance of the meeting. So
Okay.
I don't think we'll need another meeting. I don't think we need a special meeting.
Okay, all right. Question with regard to the resolutions, do you have those printed out? We'll
Yes, I
sign those
do.
this evening.
yes, I do.
Okay, so something to do before we leave?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else, sir? Okay, we have an executive session scheduled, and I have a sort of a technical question. We have our Zoom meeting going on and Pam is attending through the Zoom meeting.
I can stop the recording.
We stopped the recording, but then is there a chance that somebody from the outside might,
You would have to let them in.
you'd have to let them in?
them in, yeah.
Okay, all right, that was, I mean, it's supposed to be a closed meeting, we want to make sure.
Well, do you want me to just shut my computer down? I mean, you guys could probably do it without me, but
No, I
I
think
mean, I can give my input about Brian.
stop recording and nobody else is in the meeting, so.
Yes,
unless-
and we have to
Oh, it's not-
grant permission for anyone to enter.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Or the other guy back behind her.
Okay, so I'm
I got another guy behind me.
gonna stop the recording then.
okay. So we'll be